He said he wasn't expecting me, like I was a delivery they didn't order. The tree was lit behind him on the video call, and I was holding a wrapped tin of cookies like a fool outside my own front door, key still in the lock. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Daniel, I'm 54 years old, and this is what really happened. The cold has a particular sound in December. It cracks in the joints of the front steps. It makes the dead leaves stiff enough to whisper when you nudge them with your boot. The bronze key in my hand was colder than the knob, and for a second I watched my breath curl around it like smoke around a candle wick. Then my phone buzzed. The second buzz after the missed call from my son, and I answered. "Hey Dad," he said, and there was noise in the background. Music, clinking, someone laughing the way people laugh when they're standing too close to a bowl of punch. "Quick thing. Don't worry about driving over today." I glanced at the tin in my hand. It smelled like pecans and sugar, and the cinnamon. I ground myself because it felt like a thing a father should do. "I'm already dressed," I said. "I've got something for Noah." "We weren't expecting you," he said, like he was giving me a weather report. Not angry, not apologetic, just information. "We're keeping it small. Melissa's folks, couple friends." "I'm your folks," I surprised myself with how soft my voice sounded. That's the thing about being hurt. You think you'll roar. Most times it comes out like a tired hallway light. There was a pause. I heard a door close on his end. His voice lowered. "It's just Mom's gone, and the last few years have been complicated. We'll do something next week. Promise." Complicated is a word you use when you don't want to say we chose someone else. I told him I understood. I told him to give Noah my love. He said yeah and okay and thanks Dad, and then the call ended with that sharp little tone that feels like a fingernail under a scab. The house was quiet around me when I went inside. Not the good kind. Quiet like a place that hasn't been breathed in. The thermostat clicked, and the heater coughed on. I set the cookie tin on the kitchen counter and it sounded too loud in the empty room. There were pine needles on the floor where the tree would have stood if I'd put one up. Instead, there was a clean rectangle of hardwood like a missing tooth. I didn't sit. I stood at the sink and stared out at the bird feeder I'd meant to fill. A cardinal hopped on the rail, bright red against the dull backyard, and then flitted away before I could move. The glass felt cool when I pressed my fingers to it. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee grounds and the lemon oil I use on the cutting board. Familiar, impersonal. My laptop was on the kitchen table where I'd left it the night before, plugged in because the battery's been dying faster lately. It opened to my banking portal. I hadn't meant to do anything with it. I'd been checking that my December transfers went through. Old habits. I pay too many things for too many people. When my wife died, I got good at paying attention. That's all grief is most days, paying attention to what's still here. My thumb hovered over the trackpad. The mortgage auto pay for my son's house sat in the list with the others. Electric for my shop, winter gas, the insurance for the old F50, and then the mortgage to Maple Ridge Servicing, ending in 8112, $1,142.36. Scheduled for the 26th. The thing about numbers is they're calm. They don't judge. They just sit where you put them. I'd set that payment up 2 years ago when Adam was in between jobs, and Melissa wanted the place with the blue shutters. It wasn't much of a conversation. "We can do it on our own," she said in that fast, bright tone she uses when she's selling a point to herself. I said, "Let me help for 6 months." 6 months turned into 12, then into we'll revisit after the holidays, and then into a habit no one wanted to look at too closely. I didn't mind. I liked the idea of their porch light being on because I clicked a button in my kitchen. It made me feel connected to a life that had drifted downriver without me. Connected was not the word I would have used hearing "we weren't expecting you." I don't know if it was anger. I don't like to name feelings until they've cooled. I do know the muscles in my right forearm tightened the way they do when I'm about to lift something heavy. My thumb moved. I clicked the edit link next to the auto. The screen asked a practical question. Cancel upcoming payment? Underneath a smaller one. Are you sure? The heater rattled. A truck passed on the street out front and slushed over the leftover snow. I clicked yes and typed my password and watched the little spinning circle do its dance. Payment canceled. A green check mark. A simple thing. A quiet, private line drawn in the ledger between what I do for love and what I do to be allowed in the room. I stood there and listened to the house hum. My hands felt empty. I picked up the cookie tin and set it back down. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked. Somewhere closer my phone buzzed with a Merry Christmas from a number that used to belong to a friend we used to see as a couple. I deleted it without reading the photo. You learn a lot about people by what they expect at Christmas. Some expect a presence. Some expect you to fold yourself small enough to fit in the gap they left for you. I made coffee. I didn't really want and held the mug for warmth. The ceramic felt smooth against my palm. My breath fogged the rim. I took a sip, and it tasted like burnt toast, and a decision I couldn't take back. Some people call it justice, I said to the empty room. The words surprising me as they came out. I call it necessary. It wasn't revenge yet. It was a pause. It was me stepping back from a bad dance and letting the music go on without me. I still can't decide if walking away was strength or cowardice. I wrote Noah's name on an envelope and slid a card inside with the gift card code he'd asked for last month. I put a little note. Call me when you want to build that model engine. I've got the good glue. I pressed the seal down with my thumb and ran it along the paper like I was smoothing out a wrinkle that didn't want to disappear. When I dropped it in the mailbox, the air had sharpened. The neighborhood smelled like wood smoke and wet wool. A neighbor 2 houses down was untangling lights in his garage, swearing under his breath in a way that made me smile. We waved without saying anything. Back inside, I took out the plastic storage bin from the hall closet, the one with the old ornaments and the strip of red ribbon my wife used to tie around the topmost branch. It still held a whisper of her perfume. If you put your face right in the plastic and breathe deep enough. I did. I set the bin on the floor and sat on the edge of the couch and waited for my hands to stop shaking. People think the big breaks in a family happen during fights. Sometimes they happen during small administrative tasks. An invitation not sent. A chair not pulled out. A payment quietly canceled. At noon, I drove to the shop because the walls were starting to press closer. The shop smells like oil and cedar from the stack of planed boards against the back wall. We used to build cabinets on weekends. Adam and me. He was good with a router, careful, patient. When he was little, he'd sit on the workbench swinging his legs and ask 1,000 questions about the names of screws, panhead, countersunk, Phillips. The language of putting things together. The space heater chattered to life. I turned on the radio to a station playing Bing Crosby like the country still lived inside a snow globe. There's comfort in old songs. They don't ask much from you. I pulled the ledger book from the top drawer. Paper, not just digital. The act of writing steadies me. I wrote in neat block letters. Maple Ridge Servicing. Canceled Decade 24. Review in January. Below that, talk to Carla about trust language. Carla has been my attorney since the accident. Practical, tough, not sentimental about families that want you at arm's length but crave your wallet in hugging distance. She helped me set up the small trust I use for paying the kids' health insurance, and a few other things, always with sunset clauses, always with exit ramps. I flipped back to the first page of that ledger. The ink from 2 years ago had bled a little where the pen pressed hard. Adam, house stipend, 6 months. Revisit. Funny how certain words echo when you let them. My shop phone rang at 1. Most calls on Christmas Eve are wrong numbers or a contractor trying to pick up something last minute before a client's meltdown. I let it go to voicemail. When it rang again, I answered. Mr. Carter. The voice was smooth in a too professional way. This is Daniel from Maple Ridge Servicing. People named Daniel always have to say this is Daniel like we're a club. I just wanted to confirm your recent change to the automatic payment on loan ending in 808812. Confirmed, I said. All right. And just so you're aware, the borrower on the account has already utilized their one-time holiday deferment this quarter. The cancellation will generate a regular payment due on the 1st of January, with a grace period through the 15th. Late fees after that. Understood. We'll send the standard notice by mail. You do that. I hung up before he could slide into the script they teach for people who sound like they might want to talk. I sanded a piece of maple until the edges softened. The rhythm of it settled the noise in my head. The dust floated in the window light, each fleck moving like it had somewhere important to be. I thought about calling Adam back and explaining. Not as a threat, just as a boundary set out loud. Then I imagined the silence on the other end. The way he's learned to let quiet do his work for him. I put the phone down face first on the bench. When you're a father, you spend years telling yourself it's just a phase. The tantrums, slammed doors, the teenage distance. Then one day you realize the phase you're in is yours. I'd gotten used to holding my breath inside my own life. I closed the shop at 3. The sun was already slipping behind the laundry of clouds over the street. The cold sharpened again. I drove home past the park with a skating rink. The sound of blades scoring ice like someone writing letters you can't read. I stopped at the pharmacy for batteries and stood too long in the aisle looking at Christmas cards that all assumed a different script for my day. I bought a pack of AAA and a chocolate bar that tasted like wax and pretend joy. There was a white envelope in my mailbox with the county seal in the corner when I pulled into the drive. Official mail has a weight to it. Even before you pick it up, you know it's carrying something that will rearrange parts of your mind. I took it inside and set it on the table and looked at it like it might look back. I wiped my hands on a dish towel even though they weren't dirty. I opened the drawer where I keep the good letter opener, brass shaped like a feather, because ritual matters when you're about to let something sharp into your day. Inside was a one-page notice and a copy of a recorded document. My name at the top on their principal. The word durable power of attorney in all caps like a warning. The date at the bottom, 2 weeks ago. The signature above my printed name, mine, except it was the tail of the Ullen in Daniel curled wrong. The C in Carter didn't hook the way my hand has hooked it since 7th grade. The notary stamp from a county I hadn't been to this year. And the neat black recorder's indexing numbers in the margin like little railroad ties the thing could run along. I felt the world tilt 1 degree to the left. I touched the paper just the corner, and it felt slick the way paper does when you realize how real it is. The room went very quiet, and then the refrigerator clicked on and startled me like a cough in a church. My phone was on the counter. I picked it up and scrolled to the photo I keep of my driver's license. For times when I have to upload it for something stupid like a coupon app. I looked back at the signature on the license, then at the one on the document. The feeling that moved through me wasn't heat. It was a focused cold. The kind that freezes a lake surface so flat, it looks like glass. The document appointed one person as agent for me in all matters pertaining to financial accounts and trusts, including but not limited to disbursements for housing and mortgage obligations. The name typed neatly on the line was Melissa's. I read it once. I read it again, this time paying attention to the little words, the and the but, not limited to, because those are the words that cut you if you're not careful. I ran my finger over the notary seal. I whispered the notary's name out loud, the way you say a word to see if it loses meaning. It didn't. I sat down and put the paper next to the ledger book. Funny pairing. Like a knife set next to a recipe card. A man will put up with being told not to come to Christmas. He'll swallow the sour of that and call it complicated. But a man who works with his hands for a living will not let you write his name for him. I pulled the laptop closer and opened a new note and typed everything I could see on the document as fast as my fingers could move. The recording number, the notary ID, the date, the name of the witness who I did not know. The coffee in my cup had gone bitter and cold. I drank it anyway. I wanted the bitterness to have somewhere to go. If it were you, would you forgive? Or forget? I asked the empty room. And then I closed my eyes like I could listen for an answer in the heater's steady breath. The phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize with a photo of a packed dining table. Ham, green beans, potatoes glossy with butter. Adam at the far end smiling because someone told him to smile. Merry Christmas from our home to yours, the caption said with 3 tree emojis. Our home. I stood up, not because I needed to, but because my body wanted to be taller than the thing in front of me. The edges of the world felt very sharp and very clear. I had canceled a payment. What I held in my hand said someone else had tried to cancel me. I picked up the phone, found Carla's name and hovered. It was Christmas Eve. People have families. People have tables and hams and paper hats. I set the phone down again. The document would not change if I waited until morning, but my understanding of who I was in this story had just shifted a full step to the right. There was a knock on my door then, quick and embarrassed, like someone who doesn't want to be caught doing what they're doing. I opened it to find my neighbor's teenage son holding the cookie tin I'd left in the mailbox by accident. This fell, he said. He looked past me into the house and then back. He seemed relieved when I said thanks, like a person who isn't going to cry in front of him. I put the tin on the counter and studied my reflection in the microwave door. The face there looked like my father's on a winter when he decided to stop letting a man at church talk to him like he didn't own his own coat. There are moments you remember because they turn you. You don't always see the turn while it's happening. Sometimes you only feel the floor under your feet tilt and you move your weight to keep from falling. I picked up the paper a 3rd time. My eyes went to the witness line again. The printed name was A. Carter. For a second, that part of my mind that wants everything to be a misunderstanding offered me a soft landing. Maybe it was me, from some forms years ago, copied by an office drone. Then I saw the scrawl next to it. Not mine. His. Adam. My son had signed as the witness. I didn't sleep much. The kind of not sleep where you keep checking the clock and the numbers feel personal. At 5:11 a.m. I gave up pretending. The house had settled during the night. Those little ticks and sighs wood makes when it loosens its shoulders, and the heater breathed like an animal that trusted me. I stood at the kitchen sink, cold tile under my feet, and watched a thin gray seam of dawn unzip the dark over the backyard fence. Paperweights. That's what I kept thinking as I laid the document on a cutting board like I might be able to carve the lie out of it. I traced the recorder's indexing number with the tip of a pen. The ink from their stamp had bled a little into the fibers. I could feel a ridge where it had pressed. Real. Recorded. Mine. Except not. Coffee helped my hands stop feeling like borrowed tools. It was the cheap kind from the canister, slightly metallic on the tongue. I didn't bother with toast. The taste in my mouth already had an edge. At 6:02 a.m., when the county website promised their systems were available, I opened my laptop and typed slowly, careful not to transpose numbers. The recorder's portal is the color of old envelopes and government carpet. There's a calm to it. You enter an instrument number. It gives you facts. No music, no apology. A line appeared, doc type power of attorney, durable. Parties Carter, Daniel, principal, Harris, Melissa, agent. Status, recorded. A small link, view image, fee applies. I paid. The PDF opened. I scrolled, hunting the edges for anything that would admit I wasn't losing my mind. The notary block said state of County, and a name I didn't recognize, J. Templeton, commission number chum. Expiration date in 2026. There were 2 pages. On the second, the witness line. A. Carter. I didn't say his name out loud this time. Saying things gives them a place to sit. There's a step I've learned since my wife passed, and I became the sole steward of every decision with a date on it. Write things down on paper before you say them out loud. Paper organizes thought, voice organizes emotion. I put the ledger beside the keyboard and wrote, in block letters that steadied the breath in my chest. 1 pull copy from recorder. 2 verify notary. 3 lock accounts. 4 record revocation. 5 call Carl. The clock in the corner of the screen read 6:21. The sun finally showed itself as a pale coin behind the neighbor's bare maple. I dialed my bank first. The hold music had sleigh bells mixed into a corporate jingle, and I found myself studying a coffee stain on the counter while a voice assured me my call was important. When the representative picked up Natalie, warm Alabama, and her vowels, she listened without interrupting. We can put a no third-party authorization note front and center, she said. I'll also flag your profile for any POA presentment events. If anyone walks in with one, the system will tell us to call you on a recorded line before anything else happens. Do that, I said. Please. Consider it done, she said, and I believed her because some people say please and some people say it like a rivet. I called my brokerage next and asked for a lock-on file. They offered a security passphrase. Pick something you don't use anywhere else, the young man suggested. Cheerful and a little too sure kindness solved every problem. I said a word that used to mean something in our family and doesn't anymore. He spelled it wrong and I had to spell it twice more. Paper organizes thought. Voice organizes emotion. I breathed and spelled. By 7:10 a thin light lay across the kitchen table and my list had check marks. I added 1 more line. Credit freeze. I lifted the laptop and walked to the window while the Bureau's website spun like it was trying to get my attention. Outside, 2 boys on bikes swerved through the frosted street, their laughter carrying thin and clear. That sound went into me like a needle and threaded something I hadn't touched in a while. At 8:02 I called the number under the notary's name. It rang 4 times before a woman answered with a voice like she'd taken coffee strong and no nonsense. Mobile Notary Services, Templeton. Miss Templeton, I said. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm calling about a power of attorney, recorded under instrument number. I read it exactly. Your commission number appears on the acknowledgement. People who work with signatures understand tone. She went quiet the way people go quiet when they move from pleasantries to tools. I notarize a lot of documents, Mr. Carter, she said. Do you have a date? 2 weeks ago, I said, and gave it. She rustled paper on her end. That day I was at the UPS store on Kearney and then a senior living facility on Maple. I keep a journal. What's the name on the document? Mine, I said. It's mine. A beat. Did you sign a POA that day? No. Another beat. Then we have a problem, she said. and the way she said we made something in my shoulders loosen half an inch. "I'll check my journal," she added. "If I notarized a signature under your name, there will be an ID reference, thumbprint if required, and a description of the signer. I'll call you back in an hour." "Thank you," I said, and meant it like a prayer. I didn't pace. Pacing wastes miles. I wiped the counter. I refolded a dish towel. I put the brass letter opener back in its drawer like restoring a tool to its slot could make time behave. When the phone rang 38 minutes later, I grabbed it too fast and had to say hello twice. "I have my journal," Miss Templeton said. "Entry for the date you gave a woman named Melissa Harris presented a prepared, durable power of attorney, appointing herself as agent for Daniel Carter." She read it like the weather. Signer presented a driver's license. The principal. She paused and I felt the pause like a hand raised as a stop sign. Signed as Daniel Carter. Male mid-30s. 5'9"-ish. Dark hair. Tattoo on right wrist line art. Looks like a mountain range. "He signed your name in front of me." "My son has that tattoo," I said. The sentence came out before I decided to let it leave my mouth. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, and I believed she was. "You took a thumbprint?" "In this state, not required for POA. But my practice is to take it on anything conferring significant authority." Pages turned. Right index. The witness was A. Carter, same male. He signed the witness line and then the principal line. My mouth went dry in a way. Coffee couldn't fix. "He witnessed himself. I can't say that legally," she said. "I can say the same hand wrote on 2 lines. And I can say I asked whether the principal understood. The woman, Melissa, answered most of the questions. That should have been my cue to pause. It was a busy afternoon, Mr. Carter." "That's not an excuse, it's an explanation." Silence sat with us. "I will file a complaint with the commissioning authority myself," she added firmer. "I'll also provide you with a notarized copy of my journal entry. You'll want that." "What about the copy of the ID?" I asked. "I do not retain copies of IDs. I logged a number in issuing state." "I have that for you." "Can I meet you today?" She hesitated. "It's Christmas Day," she said, and then without condescension, "I can meet you at the UPS store at noon." "My husband will grumble, but he grumbles when I'm 5 minutes late to dinner. I'll be there," I said. After we hung up, I pressed my palm to the cold window glass and left a print that faded as a glass warmed. The kitchen had the stale smell of too strong coffee. I put on my coat. I took the document. I slid it into a clear sleeve like a museum curator who can still be surprised by the thing behind the plastic. On the drive, the world wore yesterday's snow like a shirt. It didn't mean to put on. The sky was that washed-out blue you only get in winter when the air becomes an opinion. The UPS store sat between a nail salon and a donut shop. A bell over the door attempted cheer but sounded tired. Inside, cardboard and toner and tape clean. Industrious air. A woman with steady posture and hair the color of steel looked up. "Mr. Carter?" "Miss Templeton," I said. She handed me a manila envelope. It was heavy with effort. Inside, a photocopy of her journal entry, with her new notarial certificate attached. A piece of paper with a notary board's complaint form URL circled. Her card. She'd written her cell number on it in careful block letters. "I am sorry," she said, "for my part in this." "I appreciate you saying it," I said, and I felt something uncoil in my chest just a strand. "May I ask, did she pay you?" "Cash and a $10 tip," she said, and the corners of her mouth tipped in a way that acknowledged the small indignity of small money. There was a video camera above the counter, a cheap dome that usually scolds shoplifters. I looked up at it. She followed my eyes. "We save footage for 14 days, she said. "If you get a subpoena, the owner can pull it." 14 days from 2 weeks ago, I said. "We're close." "Close isn't gone," she said, and something in me decided to like her. Back in my truck, I called Carla and expected her voicemail. She picked up on the second ring. "Happy Christmas, Daniel," she said, exactly as if we were discussing nothing more than a fallen fence. "I'm sorry to be calling today," I said. "I received a recorded power of attorney naming Melissa as my agent, witnessed by Adam. My signature is not my signature. The notary has journaled the event, including a thumbprint. I have her certificate. I've placed account locks. I want to record a revocation and a notice of suspected fraud. I also want to give sheriff's deputies something to read when I say the word forgery out loud." She said, the way a carpenter hums when they're measuring the gap under a door. I can draft a revocation of power of attorney and a notice of invalid instrument. We'll record both. Then we send certified letters to the servicer, your banks, and the brokerage with copies. We'll file a police report to create a case number. From there, the county prosecutor can decide whether to play. How fast? I asked. I can have the drafts in your inbox by 2, she said. You print, we meet at the recorder at 3. Holiday hours. But open. We'll need your driver's license. Bring the notary certificate, that's gold. I have it, I said, and my voice sounded like someone who knew where his tools were. Carla, I added, stopping because the sentence needed to be aligned first. If I'm honest, the part that sticks in my throat is the witness line. Your son, she said. Not a question. Yes, there will be a day for feelings, she said, and she has been my lawyer long enough to say that without sounding cruel. Today is paperwork. Today is boundaries with dates on them. It is a relief when someone defines a day for you. 2 o'clock, I said. I drove home the long way, past the park where Noah likes the swings, past the church with the nativity scene and a plastic baby that always looks a little surprised to be out in the weather. The streets were quiet. A woman in a red coat walked a dog with the seriousness of a parade marshal. The stoplights all ran in my favor, and it felt like the city had decided not to add insult. Carla's drafts hit my inbox at 1:47. The subject line was brisk. The duckins were cleaner than any cliff I could have jumped from. Revocation of power of attorney, notice of invalid instrument and demand for correction, and a short cover letter addressed to recording clerk county of. She'd written my name exactly as I write it, hook on the C, tail on the L, and that small care steadied something in me. I printed on good paper. The printer fed each sheet with a practical grunt. I signed with my pen that leaves a dark line and the slight texture of pressure, real ink that reflects light differently when it's fresh. At the recorder's office, the air had the smell of dust and toner and old promises. Holiday hours meant fewer people and more echo. A man in a sweater vest took the documents with a look that said he's seen everything, and none of it surprises him anymore. Carla met me at the door in boots and a coat with the kind of collar that means she buys once and keeps it 20 years. Let's take the fun path, she said, and smiled without humor. We recorded the revocation and the notice. The clerk stamped them. The thump of the stamp was a sound I planned to remember. We asked politely and precisely to append the notice to the index entry for the fraudulent POA, so any future search drags the warning behind it like a tin can on a getaway car. The clerk nodded and did not promise. The right hand of government rarely promises the left hand's work. Then Carla leaned in, casual as a neighbor asking about the weather. We have reason to believe the expungement on the original instrument is defective, she said. Is there a way to notate a pending inquiry? The clerk nodded again. We can flag it for review by legal, not a legal determination, but a note exists. If anyone tries to use it at this counter, a screen pops up. Do that, Carla said, the way a surgeon says scalpel. When we stepped back into the cold, the sun had slid behind a cloud the color of a dull coin. Carla handed me 2 certified mail green cards and a pen. Sign here and here, she said. We'll send copies to the mortgage servicer and to the notary board with your statement. We're not accusing, we're reporting a discrepancy. The law is fond of that word, discrepancy. It feels nicer in the mouth than fraud, but it points in the same direction. We stood there a moment with breath ghosts in front of us. You doing okay? She asked. I'm vertical, I said. That's often 90%, she said. The other 10% is paperwork with sharp corners. On the way home, I rehearsed sentences that started with Adam's name and ended in periods. Not questions, not pleas, statements. You used my name to move money you didn't earn. You put your wife in front of me and asked me to call that family. You witnessed a forgery, and we now have a case number. None of them felt right, because speaking them would make them real in a way a stamp has already made them real. But voice is a different kind of ink. At 5:11 p.m., 12 hours from the time I'd given up on sleep, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I knew too well. Adam. Dad. We should talk. No emojis. No padding. I put the phone on the table. I let it vibrate a second time. It did. The silence around it was louder than any ringtone. I called instead of texted. He answered on the first ring like he'd been standing with the phone in his hand. Hey, he said. Hey, I said, and we sat with the symmetry of that a breath too long. I got a notice, he said. Something about the mortgage. Melissa says you canceled. The bank says there's some kind of flag. What's going on? I canceled the payment I've been making for 2 years, I said. It's time you make your own house stand up. Silence. Then we weren't expecting you today, he said. Like repetition could turn a sentence into a plan. You were expecting my money, I said. And you were expecting my signature to be a public utility. Adam, a document was recorded appointing Melissa as my agent. My name is on it. My hand is not. Dad, he started, and that syllable had the tone of a boy who just remembered the word father has a backbone. I have the notary's journal, I said, because facts sometimes build walls. Feelings can't climb. I have her certificate. I have the revocation recorded. I have a case number. This isn't a conversation about feelings. It's a conversation about dates and signatures. He breathed like he'd been running inside a small room. He started, then corrected himself. She just needed to make sure the house was okay. It's Christmas. Things are tight. Did you sign my name? He was quiet long enough for a man to decide the rest of his life. I witnessed, he said finally. I didn't sign your name. You witnessed yourself, I said, and didn't wait for him to walk his words back from the edge. We'll let the county draw their own shape around that sentence. Are you really going to do this, he asked, and there was something in it I recognized from when he was 6 and I told him he couldn't bring a frog to bed. Surprised that a boundary wasn't flexible just because he wanted it to be. Some people call it justice, I said softly. I call it necessary. You're going to ruin my life, he said, and that sentence is a common one in families where the truth finally sits down. No, I said, I'm refusing to let you ruin mine. He sucked in a breath like anger and then let it out like somebody told him to breathe into a paper bag. Melissa talked to a guy, he said, too fast now. He said you can do a limited POA for specific bills. It's not a big deal. People do it all the time. You're making it a big deal. There's a line between tool and weapon, I said. You crossed it. Dad, he said again, but this time the syllable had an edge. If you push this, Melissa will. He stopped. Look, just come over tomorrow. We'll talk. Don't do anything else until then. I already did, I said. And tomorrow I'm meeting with a detective. That's insane, he said, voice climbing like a ladder. You're going to drag your own son into court over a piece of paper? I'm going to drag a piece of paper into a room where it belongs, I said. You decide whether you want to be in that room with me telling the truth, or with Melissa telling her version. He hung up. Not a slam. A click like a man setting a mug down a little too hard. The house was very quiet again. I stood there and felt the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the baseboards and the soft give of the rug under my feet. I looked at the cookie tin on the counter. I opened it and ate a pecan sandy that tasted like every church basement and scout fundraiser and school bake sale we ever did when the family was still a word that included me. It crumbled in my mouth and left sweetness on my tongue and grit between my teeth. At 6:03 my doorbell rang. Not the neighbor kid this time. When I opened the door, a woman in a navy jacket stood there with a badge that had the county seal and a name I couldn't pronounce at first glance. Her partner, a shorter man with calm eyes, stood a step behind. Their breath made little clouds in the entry light. Mr. Carter, she said. Detective Rios. We received a call from the recorder's office regarding your filing today and a possible forged power of attorney naming a Melissa Harris as your agent. We're initiating a preliminary inquiry. We wondered if we could come in and take a formal statement. She glanced at my hand. I was holding the manila envelope from the notary and I hadn't realized I'd grabbed it like a passport. I stepped back to let them in. The house smelled like coffee and paper. I led them to the table and laid down what I had like a dealer laying out a hand. I don't want to ruin anyone's Christmas, I said. And that was true in the same way it's true that you don't want to amputate something infected. But I also don't want to wake up in 3 months and discover I'm a guest in my own life. Reyes nodded. We like to get in early, she said dryly. Paper ages well. Memories don't. They took my statement. They photographed the document and the notary's certificate and the ledger entries. The calm-eyed partner asked precise questions that made me respect the profession more than television ever could. Are you on any medications that affect memory? Have you signed any documents in the last 30 days in the presence of an unknown notary? Do you have any security footage at your residence? No. 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 My answers stacked like bricks. When they stood to leave, Reyes handed me a card. Her cell circled. We'll contact Miss Templeton for her journal, she said. We'll also reach out to the UPS store owner to preserve the footage pending subpoena. You have a right to notify them yourself as well. I will, I said. And Mr. Carter, she added at the door, not quite turning. If anyone contacts you about fixing this quietly, let us know. That's a different kind of problem. Understood? I said. After they left, I stood in the entry and looked at the closed door like it might have another sentence for me. The house felt heavier and lighter at the same time, like a ship shifting its ballast. My phone buzzed with a new message. Not Adam. Melissa. A single line: "If you embarrass us with this, I promise I will tell Noah why you really weren't invited today." I read it twice. "There's a temperature that anger never reaches. It's below freezing." The words felt like standing on a lake and hearing a crack run under the ice toward your feet. I typed one sentence back and deleted it. I typed another and deleted that too. Then I wrote what the day had taught me. A statement, not a threat. All future communication about finances will go through my attorney. Her name is Carla Pice, and she is copied here. I added Carla's email. I hit send. Then I turned the phone face down and let it be a black square that didn't own me. I walked to the hall closet and pulled down the plastic bin with the ornaments again. I took out the red ribbon my wife used to tie at the top. I held it in my hands. It smelled like dust, and a memory I couldn't quite frame. I didn't hang it anywhere. I put it in my pocket. Not everything has to go back where it came from. At 8:17, my email chimed with a reply I didn't expect that night. Subject: TAA revocation. Emergency. From Compliance Maple Ridge Servicer. The body was short. "We have placed a hold on any use of the instrument referenced in your notice and flagged the borrower account ending in 88-1 for manual review. We have also received a third-party authorization form this afternoon, purporting to grant access to a Melissa Harris for discussion of account status. We have rejected that form pending your confirmation. Please contact our office." They had moved fast because someone had moved fast. I pictured Melissa at the kitchen table on her phone, fingers tapping, eyes hawk sharp. You can admire a person's effort and still refuse to let it work on you. I shut the laptop. The house hummed. I stood a long time in the kitchen with the edge of the counter under my palms, pressing like a man bracing himself in a gentle earthquake. The last thing I did before bed was open the back door and step out into the cold. The yard smelled like wet leaves and faint smoke. Somewhere a wind chime talked to itself. Above me a plane crossed in a straight, patient line, and I remembered teaching Adam to track them with his finger when he was small. He'd point and guess where the people were going. "Some are going home," I'd said once. "Some are leaving it." I watched the light move until it slipped behind the bare arms of the maple. When I came back in, the answering machine, the old landline I keep for habit and stubbornness, blinked. I pressed play. A voice I didn't know, male and tired, left a message. "Mr. Carter, this is Officer Lyle from County Corrections. We have a Melissa Harris in intake, who requested her one call be used to contact you. She was arrested on an outstanding warrant, unrelated to your report. She asked that you pick up your grandson. The listed emergency contact is you." The beep after his words sounded like a door clicking shut and another opening. The message kept playing in my head, even after the machine clicked back to its still silence. Arrested. Intake. Outstanding warrant. Unrelated to your report. The words felt like loose nails scattered on a floor, each one small, but together capable of shredding something important if you stepped wrong. I stood in the hallway, hand on the receiver, the air in the house suddenly sharper. My first thought wasn't about Melissa. It was about Noah. His age made him small in the world, but big in the part of my mind that still knew how to plan a day around someone else's needs. I hadn't seen him in weeks. Not since a barbecue in September where he'd chased a football across my lawn and yelled "Papa" like the word was a warm coat. I dialed the number Officer Lyle left. He answered on the second ring, his voice steady but carrying the tired weight of someone halfway through a night shift. "Officer Lyle? This is Daniel Carter. You left me a message." "Yes, sir. Thank you for returning my call. Miss Harris was brought in about an hour ago, on an outstanding bench warrant for failure to appear in the civil contempt hearing. Custody protocols require us to contact her listed emergency contact for the minor in her care. That's you. What happens now?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "The child's with a neighbor at the moment per her request, but that's temporary. If you can pick him up within the next hour, we can avoid a transfer to Child Protective Services. You'll need to bring ID. I give you the neighbor's address." I wrote it down in my ledger, top of the page, underlined. Paper organizes thought, voice organizes emotion. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. The streets were dark but not empty. Houses glowed with the leftover warmth of holiday lights. I passed 3 different driveways where families stood outside in little circles, coffee mugs steaming, Voices low. The cold bit at my hands when I stepped out of the truck in front of a narrow rental house with peeling paint and a wind chime made from mismatched spoons. The woman who answered the door was in her 40s, bundled in a fleece robe with snowflakes on it. Her eyes had the watchfulness of someone caught between wanting to help and not wanting to get involved. "You must be Noah's granddad," she said. "Come in." Noah was on the couch wearing flannel pajama pants and holding a tablet like it was a shield. He looked up, saw me, and the shield dropped. "Papa." He launched himself into my arms with the momentum of every missed visit. His hair smelled like strawberry shampoo and faint wood smoke from somewhere in the house. "You okay, buddy?" I asked into his hair. "Mom had to go somewhere," he said, the way kids repeat lines they've been told. "She said you'd come." "I'm here now," I said, and that was a promise I could keep for at least the next few hours. The neighbor handed me a small backpack. "Melissa dropped this on the porch earlier, said it had his pajamas and toothbrush. There's no coat though." I nodded. "Thank you for watching him." Back at my house, Noah padded in on sock feet, looking around like he was cataloging the space. "You don't have a tree," he said. "No," I said, "but I've got cookies." I slid the tin toward him and he picked a chocolate chip, holding it with both hands. We settled in the living room. The couch dipped under his small weight. He told me about a Lego set he'd built, about a friend at school who could do a backflip on the playground. I listened, nodding, feeling the odd dissonance of holding this moment against the knowledge of why he was here. At 9:12 p.m. my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. I stepped into the kitchen to answer. "Mr. Carter?" It was Detective Reyes. "I wanted to let you know Melissa Harris was booked tonight. Not for your matter yet, but on a family court contempt. This could intersect with your situation if guardianship issues arise." "I have Noah here," I said. Her tone shifted slightly. Professional to protective. "That's good. Keep him with you for now. I'll check whether the warrant affects her custody rights in the immediate term. If Adam contacts you, document everything. Do not agree to meet without a witness." After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen and looked at the closed door between me and my grandson. Some people call it justice. I call it necessary. But in that moment I wondered if necessary might pull me into something I hadn't planned for. Around 10:30 Noah fell asleep on the couch. One hand still curled around a half-eaten cookie. I covered him with a wool blanket my wife used to keep at the end of the bed in winter. The blanket smelled faintly of cedar and laundry soap, and it seemed to settle him deeper into sleep. I sat at the table with the ledger open, pen in hand. I wrote the day's events in order, timestamps, names, exact phrases. When I reached the line about Melissa's arrest, I paused. The pen hovered. I thought about Adam. I thought about the witness line on that forged document, about the sound of his voice when he said, "Are you really going to do this?" There was a knock on my door at 11:07 p.m. firm, Letterbert, the kind that expects a response. I opened it to find Adam standing there, jacket unzipped, face pale from the cold and something else. "I heard about Melissa," he said without preamble. "Where's Noah?" "Inside. Asleep." He stepped forward like he meant to come in. I didn't move. "We need to talk," he said. "We've been talking," I said. "You just haven't liked what you've heard." He glanced past me toward the living room. "He's my son. And you're mine," I said. "But that hasn't stopped you from signing me out of my own life." "That's not what," he cut himself off. Looked down at the porch boards, then back up. "Dad, this isn't the time for whatever crusade you're on. Melissa's in jail. They're saying CPS could get involved. If you care about Noah—" "I do," I said. And my voice was quieter than his, but heavier. "That's why he's here, warm and safe instead of with strangers tonight." We stood there in the cold air, two men bound by blood and separated by choices. His hands were jammed in his pockets, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for weather. "I need you to let this go," he said finally. "For him." I shook my head. "For him I won't." His jaw tightened. "You're going to regret this." I thought about the document, the notary's journal, the arrest, the look on Noah's face when he said "Papa." I thought about all the small, sharp choices that had led us here. "No," I said. "I already regret not stopping it sooner." He didn't answer. He turned and walked down the steps, his breath visible in the porch light. The sound of his car starting was too loud for the quiet street. I closed the door and locked it. In the living room, Noah shifted in his sleep, pulling the blanket tighter. I sat in the armchair across from him, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. Some endings don't make noise. Some just keep you awake, planning for the morning. I woke before the sun. The house was still. The kind of stillness that makes you notice the faintest noises, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the wall clock, the sound of Noah's soft breathing from the couch. I made coffee quietly, the kettle's whistle low, careful not to wake him. Outside, frost covered the lawn like a thin layer of glass. I stood at the kitchen window, hands around the mug, watching the sky lighten. At 6:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Detective Riaz. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I spoke to the family court clerk this morning. Melissa's arrest is tied to a child support contempt case involving her first child from a prior relationship. That's separate from Noah, but it complicates things, because you had Noah overnight and there's no other legal guardian present. The court may consider a temporary guardianship order to keep him out of CPS care." I didn't hesitate. "What do I need to do?" "You'll need to appear before a judge today. Emergency docket. Bring Noah, proof of your relationship, and any documents showing why you're the safest placement. I'll meet you there to provide context about your ongoing fraud complaint. That'll carry weight." After we hung up, I set my mug down and looked at the couch. Noah was still sleeping, one leg kicked out from under the blanket, hair a mess. I couldn't decide if I felt relief or guilt at the idea of stepping into a more permanent role. By 7:45 we were in the truck. Noah chattered about how cold it was, his breath fogging the inside of the windows. I dug an old coat from the hall closet. It was a size too big, but he didn't complain. The courthouse lobby smelled like disinfectant and paper. Reyes met us by the metal detectors, her expression brisk but not unkind. She knelt to Noah's height and introduced herself like a neighbor, then straightened. "The judge assigned today is fair," she said quietly. "Just answer plainly, no speeches." We waited on a wooden bench outside a courtroom where other families were coming and going. I watched one mother leave in tears, clutching a manila folder to her chest. When our case was called, we stepped into the small, echoing space. The judge was a woman in her 60s with clear eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Carter," she began, "Detective Riaz has informed the court of your connection to the minor and the circumstances leading to your temporary care. Can you confirm your relationship to Noah?" "I'm his paternal grandfather," I said. "And do you understand that today's order, if granted, gives you temporary legal custody until a further hearing?" "I do." She glanced at the paperwork Reyes had filed. "Given the custodial parent's current legal situation, absent any objection, I find this placement in the child's best interest. Temporary guardianship is granted to Daniel Carter. Review set in 60 days. Her gavel hit once. Just like that, a line had been drawn quietly but deeply. Outside the courtroom, Reyes handed me a certified copy of the order. "This gives you the right to make medical, school, and housing decisions for him. Keep it with you. And Daniel." She hesitated. "This also means Melissa and Adam may push harder against you now." We stopped for lunch on the way home. Noah wanted pancakes even though it was almost noon. I let him. He drowned them in syrup and grinned at me across the booth like this was just another day. Back at the house, I set the guardianship order on the kitchen table beside my ledger and the fraudulent POA. Different papers, but both the kind that change the shape of your life. Around 3 p.m. my phone rang again. "Carla." "Daniel, I've been contacted by an attorney representing Melissa. They're demanding you return Noah immediately and are threatening to accuse you of withholding him unlawfully." I told her about the court order. She laughed once. "Short. Then they're already behind. Email me a scan of it, and I'll respond on your behalf. Don't engage directly." I scanned the document and hit send. 2 minutes later, Carla replied, "Let them try. This isn't a negotiation anymore." Evening came early. I made spaghetti, the way I used to when Adam was little. Extra garlic, no mushrooms. Noah ate 2 plates and asked if we could watch a movie. Halfway through, his head tilted against my arm. Eyes closed. The doorbell rang at 8:42 p.m. I opened it to find Adam again, this time with a woman I didn't know. Tall, expensive coat, eyes sharp as pins. She introduced herself as Melissa's sister. "We're here for Noah," she said flatly. I stepped back just far enough to hold the door without inviting them in. "No," I said. "The judge says he's staying with me." Adam's eyes darted to the kitchen where my ledger sat open. "Dad, this is ridiculous. He's my son." "And my grandson," I said. "And right now the court trusts me more than it trusts either of you." "That's not my opinion, that's on paper." The sister's mouth tightened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight." And I closed the door. Through the wood I heard Adam mutter, "We'll see about that." The sound of their footsteps on the porch faded into the cold. I leaned against the door, listening to the quiet house, the low murmur of the TV still playing in the living room, and the steady breathing of the boy asleep on my couch. Some lines you draw to protect yourself. Some you draw to protect someone who doesn't yet know why he needs it. And I knew then, I wasn't stepping back from this fight. I was stepping all the way in. The next morning began not with coffee, but with the sound of Noah's laugh echoing down the hallway. He'd found the box of wooden trains I kept in the hall closet, relics from when Adam was his age. The click of wheels on track was sharp and familiar, a sound I hadn't heard in years. I made pancakes, small ones, the way kids like, and let him drown them in syrup again. While he ate, I checked my email. At the top of the inbox was a new message from Carla. Urgent contact from Detective Reyes. Call immediately. When I reached Reyes, her tone was brisk. Daniel, we pulled the UPS store footage. It's crystal clear. Melissa and Adam together in front of the counter signing that document. Melissa does all the talking. Adam signs twice. The timestamps match the notary's journal exactly. I closed my eyes for a moment. That's the case then. It's a case, she said. Forgery, false witness, possibly conspiracy to commit fraud. It'll be up to the DA how far they take it. I'm bringing them the footage this afternoon. I thanked her and hung up. My hands were steady, but inside there was a mix of satisfaction and something heavier. There's no victory in proving your own family lied. It's just a different kind of loss. By mid-morning, Carla called with another update. Melissa's attorney just sent a formal demand for Noah's return. I responded with a guardianship order and advised them any further threats would be documented for the court. I could hear the faint rustle of papers on her desk. Daniel, brace yourself. Once the DA moves, this won't just be about a piece of paper. It'll be about credibility. They're going to come for yours. That afternoon, Adam showed up unannounced again. This time I met him on the porch and didn't let him inside. His face was drawn, voice low. They have footage, he said. I know, I replied. I didn't think it would go this far. It always goes this far, I said quietly. That's why you don't start. He looked down at his hands. Dad. His voice cracked, but he caught it before it could turn into anything else. Melissa's going to fight this with everything she has. She already did, I said, and she lost more than she knows. For a long moment we stood there in the cold, the distance between us as solid as the porch boards. Then he turned and walked away without another word. That evening I sat at the kitchen table with my ledger open. Noah was asleep again on the couch, the wool blanket tucked up to his chin. The guardianship order lay beside the notary certificate, the fraudulent POA, and now a printed still from the UPS store footage. Adam's head bent over the counter, pen in hand. I wrote a new line in the ledger. Divinity 27, truth on record, trust revoked. It struck me then how quiet the house felt, not empty, but held, like the walls understood something had shifted. I glanced toward the living room at the boy sleeping under my roof, and realized that whatever fight came next, I'd already made the choice that mattered. Some people call it justice. Some call it protection. I call it necessary. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.